Hello and welcome to today's tutorial. We're going to go over how I edit my headshots. The key thing that you want to take from this is to make sure that your subject does not look like a Barbie doll. We don't want to smooth their face way too much. It's alright to smooth out their skin, just don't overdo it. But we'll go ahead and get more detail in that later. First, let's go ahead and get our photo. Right off the bat, there's already a few things that we want to fix. You see ripples in the fabric in the back. If you zoom in real close, you got a bunch of flakes on the shirt from me having a dry scalp. You got heavy smile lines because I am a happy guy. Frizzy hair because North Carolina's humidity is a thing. Slightly yellow tinted teeth, I need to brush better. Neck beard because I didn't really shave that morning the way I should have. I don't think I did it this morning either. And last but not least, I got slight blemishes all over my face. Absolutely beautiful, aren't I? If you're ever having a bad day, just remember I just made an entire video roasting myself in great detail. So to make my edits, I'll be using two programs today, Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop. So let's first open up Lightroom. So once we have the photo in, the main thing that I usually do is just slight color adjustments and lighting adjustments, which is very important, especially if you're doing outside photos. But I do this to every single photo that I take during a photo shoot first, and then I take them into Photoshop to do all my further edits. I start off all my photos by hitting Shift A to be able to get like a good little jump start for just using the auto function. And then I go through and make slight adjustments to each one until I'm satisfied with it. Okay, I think that's a good start. So we're gonna go ahead and take this over to Photoshop to do the rest of the edits. Since we're just working with one photo, instead of exporting a bunch of them, we can actually just go up to File, Edit in Photoshop, and then just shoot it on over to Photoshop. Now in Photoshop, we have a lot of tools on this toolbar right here, but I don't commonly use all of them, especially when I'm doing my headshots. So I'll just go ahead and point out the tools that we will be using. We got Remove Tool, History Brush, Clone Stamp Tool, and then very quickly we'll talk about the use of a brush tool later. So the very first thing that I do before I make any of my edits is that I want to have a separate duplicate layer, so I can always have my base layer to always go back to for a reference. And you can do that by clicking on the layer that you want duplicated, hit Control J. So next when editing my photos, I always go all the way up here to Filter, and then I get on Neural Filter, and then I go to Skin Smoothing. If this is your first time using it, you're going to do a quick little download, won't take long. Go ahead and activate that, bring both of them up just by a little bit. Make sure you click on your subject's face first if you have a photo with multiple people in it, and it just smooths their skin out a little bit, and that is plenty for what we need. Now, I kind of do it quickly, you may not have noticed. As soon as you do a neural filter, it actually selects the entire screen. Go ahead and hit Control D to deselect the screen. So now we can see the before and the after. Slight adjustments. After that, I go into my Remove tool. I mainly use this to get rid of flakes on clothing, small blemishes, wrinkles, poorly groomed beards, and strands of loose hair. So I'm gonna go ahead and make those edits real quick, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so for wrinkles in the eyes, it's a little tricky because you don't want to remove the lines entirely like what I'm doing right here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a trick of what I usually do to kind of like help alleviate it, but still kind of get rid of everything, and an easier way to kind of like scale it. So first of all, I'll go ahead and use the Remove tool, and I just get rid of the heavy lines entirely, and then I'm going to slightly bring them back using the History brush. So I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, so the main reason before I show the History brush that you don't want to just like remove the lines entirely is because when you're removing those lines and defining features of your face, you're slowly just becoming a completely different person, and that's what we want to avoid. What I usually do is that I remove the lines completely. I go to the History brush, I make sure that it is on a soft round, that the opacity is a little bit lower than like around 30 to 40%, depending on how much you want to bring back. And I just brush those lines back in. So before, after. So a bit of my defining feature is still there, but it's not gone completely, so it doesn't look fake, and it's just not as heavy, not as noticeable. So you still get a little bit of the slight details without losing all the detail in your face completely. Okay, so the next tool that we're going to be using is going to be the clone stamp tool. I usually use this to get rid of all the frizzies in the hair, but this only works when it is on a plain background. If you are outside, you need to utilize the remove tool and just kind of go through the strands of hair one at a time. I do it all the time, and after a while you start to get quick with it, so it's not as time consuming as you think it is. But on a base background like this, I just have those clone stamp tool selected. I hold down Alt. It's going to give me this alternative tool. I'm just going to click on a spot that I want to copy, so I'm just going to click kind of in the area close to the hair, and then that is going to copy wherever. If this is your first time using the clone tool, it's also a great way to give yourself a third eye. So click right here, and then I just start brushing in, and then I don't go all the way in and make everything perfectly smooth like that. I usually just get rid of like the frays that come out of the edge. So a lot of this fray I kind of keep. Now up close it looks really weird, but when you zoom out it looks nice and clean. Now if this clump right here still bothers you, yeah, you can absolutely go through and clean it up a lot more. And if you feel like it's a little bit too rough of a trim on your hair, which a lot of time it seems like it for me, I always go with the history brush tool again. I actually set this to a hard round because I want the hair to be like sharp and defined, and then I slowly kind of bring this back. So the reason why I use the sharp tool is that all of these things that come out basically just look like the frizzies that are just naturally there when you zoom out all the way. If you use the round brush tool, you kind of get the same effect, it's just not as defined, but honestly it's just up to you. But yeah, before, after. So I'm going to go ahead and do this around the entire head. Make sure that you don't just keep that one point for the tool, because if you try to do that, you start cleaning up right here and then you go right here to do it, it's going to be put into a completely different spot that might be like too high depending on how much headroom you have. So I always just kind of continuously make a new spot, especially if your background has a slight gradient to it. You definitely want to make sure that you do this with it, because this dark area right here is starting to pop up, and when you zoom out you can actually see it better. So you gotta be careful with that. And if you feel like it's popping up too much and it's not a solid color, that's usually just where you would bring your remove tool brush back, and then you would basically just go over the strands like that. Sometimes you can do a big area at once. It's a little messed up and crooked. It's very spiky right here. It doesn't really look good. So that's when I just hit Y, bring me back to the history brush, and I just fix. At that point, actually, would bring the opacity all the way back to 100, because I want to basically go over what was wrong right there. There we go. And now that it's a lot closer and all this area is taken care of, that's when I go with the stone clamp, have a little bit of a closer bit, kind of fix those a little neater. There we go, much better. Now you don't want to give yourself like a perfect drawn kind of outline. You still want a little bit of frizzies coming out, because when you zoom out it looks a lot more natural. All right, this is the before and the after. Definitely much better than what it was. Having your hair actually down nice pat, slick and smooth, changes drastically. Like right here I look like a crackhead. Now I look like a crackhead with a job. So last thing that we're going to do is that we're going to fix my yellow teeth. You can find a lot of good tutorials online on how to do this, and I'm just going to quickly show you the way I go about it. So if you need to pause, rewind the video, please go ahead and do that. So you want to go ahead and go down to this button right here, go to hue and saturation, decrease the saturation a bit and increase the lightness. So this affects the entire canvas. So to kind of like make sure it just focuses in on the teeth alone, we're going to hit Control I, still having this layer right here selected. That's going to invert it. Now this entire screen is black, so what that means is that hitting B, getting your brush tool, if you have white, it is going to color back in whatever that adjustment was. And then hitting X, or hitting this button right here to kind of switch the colors. So I usually just hit X for a quick key. Basically just colors that back in. So what we do is that we have it on the white tool, we go down to our teeth right here, and just color them in. You can use a hard brush for this or a soft brush, just depending like if you're wanting it to have like those real hard edges. And midway through, if you want to change a little bit of how the teeth looked, if you felt like you went way too far with the saturation or the lightness, you can always just click right here, brings this up, and then you can adjust it again. Go back on this tool, and then we'll just go ahead and finish coloring everything back in. All right, and this is the before and after. You don't want to make them too white and bright because it's gonna look fake and weird and dumb. Honestly, I feel like I went a little bit too far on this, but for the most part, that's the shot. So I could go a little bit more into cleaning up like a few more things that I'm noticing, but this was just to be kind of like a rough idea on how to go about editing your headshots in Photoshop. This is the main kind of like process that I do, and then I just kind of like go a little bit more in detail with some of these, especially like I would clean up the beard a lot more. But with this being the original to now, I think I look pretty darn cute. So the last little tip that I want to go ahead and give, I mentioned it earlier, but don't get caught up on all the little nuances. Don't be trying to spend like 10 minutes on trying to fix something in the eye just when you come all the way out here and you can't even notice it at all. Most of the time, if you're doing headshots for clients, they're probably going to have this printed onto a business card where they're not going to be able to look very close to the thing and complain that the 1 pixel in their eye that you notice is not the right shade of black. Like, you're not going to run into that issue. So try not to waste your time trying to fix every little tiny detail, because in the end, you're probably going to be the only one to notice. So zoom out, take a break, see the photo as a whole, and don't get caught up in all the tiny details. Hope this helps.